Hey, everybody, welcome back to City Beats. This is Efrem Smith, your host. Yes, me, Efrem Smith, your host. And I always just am fascinated that I get this comic book E behind here on the set. This is like season 2. We've stepped it up a little bit in terms of the set. So if you're watching and not just listening, you get to see this set, which includes my comic book E. And if you're a comic book fan, superhero movie series fan like me, maybe you've already on Disney Plus finished both WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier. If you haven't, I can't believe this. You need to bless yourself, okay? And watch those 2 series. They are awesome. I want to give it away, but I won't do that because we'll have a whole episode on superhero movies and comic books and everything urban nerd on another occasion. But welcome back. This is your first time listening to, watching City Beats. This is a podcast about living out our faith, making a transformative impact in the urban context. So we discuss a lot of issues that are urban. Why? Because we're living in an ever-increasing, multicultural, multi-ethnic, urban reality. The majority of the people on this planet are living in urbanization. Growing cities that aren't just limited to the county line the city's in, but like these growing just metropolitan centers. And we have to figure out how we're going to live out our faith in a transformative way in that context. So my guest today, I want to get to that right now. Her name is Taylor Balian. Welcome, Taylor.
Hello, it's good to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. And just let me say a few things about Taylor before we get into this conversation. Taylor Balian is a part of the team here at Midtown Church. So Midtown for, the last 7 years was a campus of Bayside Church, and recently we were prayerfully released to be our own autonomous, urban, multi-ethnic church, also planting other intentionally urban, multi-ethnic churches. And Taylor helps us in the area of programming and production. So if you're paying attention to Midtown Church online or on site, and you're going, man, that experience of worship is awesome. Well, you can thank Taylor Balian for that in a lot of ways. But also, Taylor has this background and this connection to arts and entertainment, to one of the large tech companies in Silicon Valley. She's been involved in marketing. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that, how she lives out her faith in that sector. But we're also going to talk about just her thoughts on the church as a millennial, but also as a PK, as a pastor's kid. So I just better put it all out there that you are the daughter of my tag team partner in ministry, Bob Balian, who I have the privilege of co-pastoring Midtown Church with. And he's been on City Beats before. We're going to get him back, but we might find out like some inside tea about Pastor Bob Balian on this episode of City Beats. But you don't want to talk about your dad because you've got a great story yourself. So again, thank you for being on this episode of City Beats.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here.
So here's something that you and I have in common. Mm-hmm. We both have a theater and arts background.
We do.
So I went to a performing arts high school that had a performing arts school within the school. I also was a theater major in college. So tell me, first of all, about your theater and arts background.
Yeah, so academically, I didn't get into theater and arts until grad school. So I did undergrad and got my BA in political science. I thought I was going to go to law school and work in government. We live in Sacramento. Sacramento is the state capital. And so after I was done with undergrad, I moved home got the opportunity to work at the Capitol and get that experience, and it just wasn't really for me. I've always loved music, though. Just something about it has been very special to me. My parents call me the human iPod. I remember a lot of lyrics to a lot of different songs, new and old. And so they saw that I wasn't happy doing the job that I was doing with the government, and they were like, "You are so passionate about music. You should try to pursue a career in that." And so at the time, we were the house. I was on the young adults leadership team. I also served on the production team and taught myself how to use the soundboard. And that was kind of my segue into going more down the music entertainment background. I ended up applying for grad school at Berkeley College of Music under their business program. Got in by a miracle.
So let's jump from political science to doing some stuff in the church. And when you said the house, so for some people that don't know,
Yes.
before we're Midtown Church now, we were Bayside Church, Midtown campus, but originally 10 years ago, this church was called The House.
Yes.
And so you were involved. You said you taught yourself how to use the soundboard.
Yeah.
So you really made this jump from aspirations in political science to getting into production and the arts and entertainment.
Exactly. Yeah, that's where kind of that leap happened. And yeah, ended up going to school. It was a 1-year program. Learned a ton about the music industry because didn't really have any insight or information. And so from there, after I graduated, I moved to LA. And I was living in LA for 7 years up until this past September. So got a lot of experience on the label side, the live side, and yeah, most recently on the tech side too.
Yeah, so let's go back and talk a little bit about being in LA. You worked for Red Bull.
I did.
So people think of Red Bull as the energy drink.
Yep.
But actually there's more to the company Red Bull than just going into a store and buying an energy drink. That like there were other components, and there's this kind of entertainment marketing side. So talk about because this was a really cool job you had at Red Bull. So talk about that.
It was really fun. So I worked in the culture marketing program. There used to be a program called Sound Select. So it was an up and coming development program for up and coming artists. And so one of Red Bull's like main taglines is giving people wings. And so our idea was to give wings to artists and creators through this program. So it was a global program. We would identify about 12 artists a year from around the world, different countries that were kind of like our artists to watch lists. And we developed this program around them. So really helping them to take that next step into their career. We leveraged our, relationships with producers, other artists, people on more of the event side, so music festivals and concerts and stuff, to do projects with these artists, whether if it was in the studio and we worked with a really famous producer or had a famous person famous artists as like their feature. That was the whole idea. And so I was mostly on the events and experiences side. So Red Bull also has its own line of festivals and concerts. So the concerts would be Red Bull Sound Select Presents or Red Bull Music Presents. It kind of evolved over a couple of years. And then at the end of each year, we would have a 30-day festival. 3 years it took place in LA, and then its final year it took place in Chicago.
So when you say a 30-day festival, you mean like for the whole month you're in a city in the same location or different locations?
Different locations each night. So, but yeah, the whole month of November 1st through the 30th, we were in different locations each night, different headliners. We would place these artists to watch on those bills with other headliners. And we would, provide incentives for people to get there early to watch the opening act. Because I don't know if I think a lot of us have been to a concert. You go for the main act. That's kind of what draws you in, right? And a lot of these up and coming artists, people might not recognize them. But if you incentivize people to get there early, then you get them more exposure, and people will start to connect. Oh, I saw that artist at this bigger artist concert. Like, it's the bigger artist who drew me in, but I got to be exposed to this new up and coming and talented artist.
So is there an artist who's well known now that you remember back then at Red Bull seeing as kind of the unknown up and comer that you put in this position to open up or be in this festival, and now you're going, hey, they're kind of a household name now?
There's a lot of them. Ones that were like a part of our specific list each year. Like, some of the names that I'm about to say weren't necessarily a part of that list, but some of them were. So we worked with Chance the Rapper really early on.
Yeah.
We worked with Lizzo really early on.
Minnesota. I'm from Minnesota.
Yes, Minnesota.
She
Callie Uchis, she just won a Grammy.
Yeah.
We worked with her really early on. I'm trying to think of a couple. Those are a couple of the artists that we worked with really early on that now are household names, just like you said. Yeah.
So I'm just fascinated, and I see when I think of Red Bull too. I didn't know a lot about that entertainment side until I got to know you and your role there. Because when we first met, that's where you were.
Yep.
But I kind of knew that Red Bull was involved in like the X Games too, like kind of where it was. So with the X Games, was that just getting sponsorship, like paying the money so that you would see Red Bull advertised at the X Games, or were they actually like marketing, connecting with some of the, I don't know if you call them the X Games athletes? Yeah, the X Games athletes.
It was a bit of both. Yeah. So traditional marketing, advertising, yes, like they would have their logo all over, like, I don't know, billboards, or I don't know what you call like the sidelines or whatever, you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. And then there were some events on the sporting side, motocross side, that were Red Bull owned. And then Red Bull also sponsored athletes. And so there's like all of that falls under what we call sports marketing.
Yeah.
So there were athletes that were sponsored by Red Bull. So if you ever see an athlete wearing a Red Bull hat or any sort of Red Bull merchandise, that means that they're sponsored by Red Bull as well. And the cool thing about, the athlete side, similar to like what we were doing with Sound Select and how it was like an incubator program and helping artists get better, Red Bull does that with their athletes too. So providing them with trainers and coaches to get them to that next level in their athletic career, to just make them better athletes as well. There is this other program that like athletes can have access to, which I thought was like super interesting, really using therapy, for lack of a better term, to make artists better. So I remember this one, Ricky Fowler, he's a golfer. He is an athlete that was sponsored by Red Bull. I think he still is, I'm not sure. But I remember a story that they told us where he was having a really hard time putting. And so they used this cap that could measure his brain waves to help him figure out, like, okay, what do you have to think about in order to make your putt? And once they figured that out, he got really good at his putting and has hardly missed any hole since.
Well, this is amazing, because this is really saying that at Red Bull, they went beyond just an energy drink they took that slogan, "We give you wings," and it became a movement.
Yep.
And it became a way of changing lives.
Yep.
And because some people watching or listening right now might be going, okay, all this conversation you're having about Red Bull and festivals and X Games, what does that have to do with like living out your faith in the city? I'm intrigued by how this company, it's not the church, but they went beyond an energy drink to a slogan that became life-changing. And I just go, well, that's what we're supposed to be doing with our faith in culture.
Yeah.
Is our faith in culture is not simply coming to a building and just having a bunch of religious rituals, or kind of going after the culture and saying where you're not right and where you're, pointing the finger at the culture, but like actually going, the heart of who we are, it infiltrates the culture in such a way that it starts a movement. That somebody, no matter where they are, whether they're trying to, look at becoming a better golfer or whether they're an up and coming artist, like the essence of who we say we are as believers penetrates their souls, has this transformative, empowering impact in their life so that they go, there's deep meaning to why I'm a person of faith. Doesn't mean that being a Christian means you're going to be successful at everything, everything's going to go your way, but just something so deep and meaningful. And so I'm just going, man, Red Bull it is more than an energy drink. Okay,
Yeah.
So, but you're not at Red Bull now.
No.
So talk about kind of your journey from Red Bull to what was the next thing?
The next thing was YouTube. I was an employee at YouTube for 2 years. And so that jump, I'll just back it up a little bit. So when I first started in the entertainment business, it was very music focused. I worked at a record label. I was developing soundtracks for film and television. My next step was then over to Red Bull. Still had that music element, but now it was more events and experiences. And then this jump over to YouTube as of late was more entertainment, less music focused, but also very heavy in events and experiences. So that's where I've been for the last 2 years. And I was responsible for producing events and experiences specifically for our top creators. So people who put content on YouTube and have like millions of followers.
Yeah.
And also like taking it one level deeper, was really focused on diversity and inclusion. So doing events specifically for our Black creators, Latinx, Asian, and LGBTQ. So we activated a lot around heritage moments, Black History Month, Asian History Month, Pride, Hispanic Heritage Month, and just really tried to build community amongst creators and also with YouTube. So at a lot of these events that I would put together, we would invite our executives to come and hear firsthand from creators what they love about the platform, what they wanted to change, and yeah, also just create community between creators as well, so that beyond that event that they attended together, maybe they might be able to do some sort of partnership or something like that down the line and grow their subscriber number and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So in the midst of all that experience, you could easily just go, that's where my life is. I'm giving my life to this career and events, and we're going to talk about it in a minute. You're actually launching a company yourself too, right?
I am. There's a lot going on.
Oh, this is awesome. The life of like a system millennial making it happen, right? So well, let's just jump to that right now. I'll come back to this other thing I want to talk to you about. But so talk about a company you're launching yourself.
Yeah. So a part of like the events and experiences that I've done, both at Red Bull and at YouTube, there's always some sort of swag or gifting element involved. And it's one of my favorite parts of putting together an event. Gifts is actually my number one love language. And so, but I'm the kind of person where it's like, you give me a stick from a tree and I'll be so thankful because you thought of me. And that's how it kind of works with me. But I always loved working with an agency or working with my team to come up with like, okay, what's something cool that we can give to these creators, these artists that is going to be memorable, something that they're going to want to use that's going to remind them of that point. Like, oh, hey, I went to that YouTube event and I got this piece of swag and I use it all the time. And it just like fosters really good memories for them. And so at the end of last year, I was like, I love doing this so much. I love gifting people. I love the surprise and delight element. I'm going to try doing this myself. And so, yeah, I started a gift boxing company. It's called Box Bohem. We are live. The website is live, which is really exciting. But yeah,
put the info out there then.
Boxbohem.com. BOXBOHEME.com. And yeah, so I curate gift boxes for all kinds of moments. Birthdays, just because, you know, especially with COVID, like it was really hard to connect with people in person. And everyone got the Zoom fatigue. And so I noticed that, like, people were sending friends little gifts and just, to brighten their day. And so that's kind of what this is all about. So depending on like who your recipient is and what the occasion is, there's a wide variety of boxes that are ready to buy, and we'll ship them out to whoever you want them to go to. We'll include a special note as well, just some words so that they know that you're thinking of them.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
So in the midst of all that, you could just be the entrepreneur, in the tech world, but you care about the church too.
I do.
So you can't be involved in the church just because your dad's a pastor and he made you. There's got to be something more compelling there. So, am I right in saying that in the midst of all this other stuff that you're passionate about, you do have a heart for the church?
Yes.
And how it lives out its mission and purpose. Mm-hmm. And so, and you've had some connections like to Hillsong, right?
Yes.
Or one of the Hillsong churches?
Yeah, Hillsong in LA. I served there for a couple of years, and then also attended two other churches in LA. But I would say Hillsong's probably the most notable one.
Yeah, yeah.
Because of their name.
So as you think about what you've experienced at Red Bull, at YouTube, launching your own business, and then you think about the church and our purpose and mission, what is the church missing today? Because this is what we know from a lot of research, whether it's Barna or other organizations, that the church in the United States of America especially could do so much better when it comes to reaching your generation. Mm-hmm. And we're struggling in really earning, maybe I would say, the loyalty, the connection, the allegiance of millennials. We could do so much better. What is it that we're missing that we could do better at when it comes to reaching your generation, especially in the city?
Yeah. I'm speaking church in general here.
Yeah.
So I think that our generation is very passionate and intentional about inclusivity. Mm-hmm. And so I think that a lot of people who are of my generation probably aren't so drawn to the church because it associates the church with the exclusion of certain types of people and their lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And I would say that the church has been seen as very judgmental as well, which, again, millennials, Gen Z as well, probably even more so than us, are all about just like spreading the love and accepting everyone as they are. Mm-hmm. That's one thing that I think the church has kind of been missing. And then also just really walking out what is being preached. So like really serving the community, evangelizing in that way, or just being like a good place for people to come to, and again, like not feel judged, or that church should go out and like serve the community as it kind of preaches that it should.
Yeah. So
if that makes sense.
Yeah. And to kind of go back to your Red Bull experience, or even maybe this is even true at YouTube, that those companies that are really reaching a growing, diverse, intergenerational market, mm-hmm. is because they're not just focused on the product they're putting on a shelf, or the thing that people download. They're actually trying to create a deeper, transformative experience, mm-hmm. and they're doing that off of a slogan,
right?
Off of a mission statement. Versus in the church, this is about eternity. This is mm-hmm. about like people having an experience of love and grace and truth that totally transforms their life now, but then points to who they will be forever,
right?
In a meaningful way. And so, that's so good. So, but yet, And of course, I'm going to be biased because I like the church that I'm at, even though I know
I
we
do
got
too.
issues.
Yeah.
We can always do stuff better. But what is it that you feel like here at Midtown or other churches that you've experienced that you're going, okay, I could go to church here, I could be here. What is it that those, even though we could do better, those churches are doing that's getting at this challenge that the church faces? What are we doing right?
Yeah. So, previous question, I wanted to make sure that I said church in general because I don't feel like Midtown Church is church in general. I think that we really do live out our calling of, taking care of the city. And I think that's a reason why people love to come to our church. They see us really showing up and taking care of all members of the city. I I think I'm also biased too. I went to Hillsong. I went to a couple of other churches when I lived in LA for 7 years, and there was just nothing like Midtown. The diversity, the teaching, just how everything is so relatable. I think a lot of what you preach, what my dad preaches, anyone who's up there on the pulpit preaches, is just so applicable to everyday life. And some of the analogies that you guys use are also extremely applicable. And it's like, oh, yeah, like what you just said, that's something that happened in my life, or I can relate to that. So I think that's definitely getting it right. And yeah, just, again, I know I've said this a bunch of times, but like truly having a heart for the city. Like the church that I went to in downtown Los Angeles, if you know downtown in LA, you know, there's Skid Row.
Yeah.
LA has a really exasperated homeless issue. And I personally, I was very involved with the church. I was the essentially production director. I made sure that every Sunday went well. And I never heard of any sort of outreach, or it wasn't as, for lack of a better term, like advertised. Like no one really talked about going outside of the church walls and like serving the city. And that didn't sit well with me. It was actually one of the reasons why I moved on. And I think Midtown does that really, really well. And I think that for my generation, I said before, like really showing up and walking the walk, not just talking it, is super important. And I think that that's probably why, we do attract a lot of people my age, a lot of people in the Gen Z generation, is because, yeah, Midtown really walks the walk.
Well, that means a lot hearing that from you. And I know, just knowing you these past few years, you're not somebody that's going to, give a compliment just to give one or say something nice about the place just because your dad's on staff. I mean, I've been in settings with you where you would say to your dad, hey, we could do this better, or I don't know about that. Or so I know the authenticity and sincerity behind what you say. And I know that there's still a lot of stuff that we could do better, but it's definitely meaningful to hear that from you, because it's interesting. I was with a group of pastors a couple weeks ago, and when I would talk about the younger pastors in that gathering, when I would talk about where I am and the name of the church, they'd go, "How are you doing reaching millennials?" And because that's like the big thing. I'm like two of the big things that, or are actually what I found is there's three big things when I introduce myself to people and talk about being a pastor. There's a question about diversity, because with the racial unrest and division, people want to know if the church is actually, doing anything about that, having an impact in a diverse yet deeply divided mission field. So I'm asked about our diversity. I'm asked about reaching millennials, because that's a big deal. Are you reaching the younger generation, or are you just kind of living off the older folks with money? or are you struggling living because the older folks, aren't going to be able to sustain your church for the next 25 years? And then I get asked questions actually about women in leadership too. That's the other question. Are women in positions of leadership? Can women preach at your church? Can women lead at your church? Are women in positions of decision making, or is it just a boys' club? So when I'm with younger pastors or when I'm talking to millennials and reveal that I'm a pastor, those are usually the three questions. So does that seem right to you as a millennial that those, there's other stuff probably but millennials would want to know, is your church diverse? Is your church reaching my generation? Mm-hmm. And what about women?
Yeah, I would say that those are all questions that I would probably ask too if I was going to a new church as well. Yeah. All of those topics are extremely important to me, and I can probably speak for all of my friends and say that would be something that's important to them, or seeing a church that has all those things going on would really draw them in and attract them as well. Yeah.
And I would assume some of the other questions would be just about some of the issues you raised about, are you inclusive? Are you exclusive? And, the whole, that could be a whole topic we could talk about, being, diversity and inclusion.
Yeah.
And because I go, there are a number of positions, we'll just start with on the human sexuality issue, number of positions that churches take. But I just go, if members of the LGBT community walk into your church and they have this immediate feeling of, I don't belong, I don't think they want me here, I go, that's not the church of Jesus to me.
I agree.
Regardless of where you are on a theological spectrum, and I'm one that, is deeply believed in the centrality and authority of Scripture on a number of issues. And at the same time, I go, man, I read the Gospels and I see Jesus actually caring deeply about the marginalized, the outcast, those deemed on the margins, those deemed unrighteous and sinful, and yet Jesus meets them where they are. Jesus extends compassion, love, grace. Actually, most of the time when I'm reading about Jesus mad at people, it's like people like me. Like it's the religious.
Who are trying to condemn those people that are marginalized.
Yeah, it's like it's the religious leaders Jesus is talking to when he says, "You snakes, you hypocrites, you liars, you're vile." It's like he's talking to people like me.
Yeah.
He's not talking to the person on the street that hasn't even fully realized how much God loves them and what God's true purpose is for their life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so I go, but what we've done is we've turned it backwards. We're really all nice and soft with pastors and, preachers and stuff. And then we're real like tough and mean and judgmental and hard on people that are outside the church. And I go, that doesn't seem like the way Jesus did it.
No, it seems very, hypocritical. But yeah, no, I totally agree with everything that you just said. And yeah, I think that in order to better ourselves as the church, I think that we need to probably look at our reflection in the mirror and be like, okay, like, what are we getting right? Are we really living out the way that we are? Sorry. I'm getting tongue-tied.
Oh, doing great. You're doing great.
Are we really living out the calling, and are we really following in the footsteps of Jesus in 2021? And I think being honest with yourself in any capacity and wanting to better yourself is a good thing, and challenging yourself is a good thing. And so I think that anyone can get complacent if things are going well for them. But in order to really make some change, or in order to better oneself, or for an organization to better itself, has to look at itself and be like, hey, what are we doing right? What could we be doing better? And pivot.
Yeah. If that's tongue-tied, that's the best tongue-tied I ever heard. That was great. Well, I know that you're pressed on time. You got a lot of stuff going on. I'd love to have you back.
Yes,
and
I
have
would love to do that.
the Taylor Balian episode 2.0. And but thank you so much for being on here and having this conversation. And I want to once again just encourage you. Well, first of all, before I encourage you, I want to say thank you. Thank you for checking out this episode of City Beats with Taylor Balian. And either you're listening or you're watching and listening. And so I want to encourage you, if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel that you're watching on, if you're doing that, please subscribe. Tell people to subscribe, okay? Let people know. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on YouTube. So, check it out. Let people know. And as I've told people that watch this, as soon as we get to 1,000 subscribers, you will get to see the guy behind the scenes, the guy that doesn't want to be seen, Mark Johnston. Yes. He is like the producer extraordinaire of this podcast. He doesn't like to be on this side of the camera, but I think he still promised me. I'm looking at him right now. He's not really saying, okay, you know what?
It's a no for now.
Yeah, but I just think we can change his mind.
I think we can.
So I think we can change his mind. So let people know. And thank you for checking us out. Keep staying connected. God bless.
As the YouTubers would say, smash that subscribe button.
Wow, I like that. Smash.